everyone, and welcome to Peak Health with Dr. Gupta. This show is for those who want to optimize their health, maximize their genetic potential, and have some fun along the way. Today's episode is one that I'm very excited about. Many people struggle with exercise, eating right, having the proper mindset, because they think it takes too much willpower. The literature shows, and we all know this personally, that we have limited willpower on a daily basis. We can only push ourselves so hard before we give up. Well, the truth is, when these things become a habit, they really take no willpower at all. Imagine exercising, eating healthy, starting off the day powerfully with little or no effort. How do you do that, you may ask? Well, today, to help us, we have my good friend, Dr. Vikram Raya. Vikram is a dear friend of mine, a cardiologist, a high-performance coach, a serial entrepreneur, a father of two wonderful kids, a fantastic husband. I can go on and on. He has more energy and drive than anybody I know and is very successful. So the question is, how does he do so much? Well, he's an expert at creating habits. Welcome, Vikram.
Hey, Ravi. Thanks, man. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. I'm very happy to have you. And let's just start off by something very simple. Why are habits so important?
Habits are essentially metaprograms or default settings, guys. If you have habits installed, then you don't have to use your precious willpower. I think willpower is a currency, Ravi. And by having these metaprograms running the background, essentially you're guaranteeing success. Success is essentially building, bulletproof habits that propel you toward your goals seamlessly and almost automatically.
What is a metaprogram?
It's essentially these subconscious routines that it's easier to do them than to not do them. So it's automaticity. It's basically saying, hey, look, I can almost sleepwalk, go downstairs, take my green smoothie, work out, and then I'm like, oh, I'm done with my morning routine. Great. I don't even think about it. There's no actual thought process. It's a routine your body does almost automatically. And your subconscious is essentially running these programs versus you consciously thinking, oh man, I have to get up. I have to eat drink that smoothie. Which workout I have to do today? Oh God.
So what you're saying basically is, habits are so important because they're really in our subconscious and they're just an automated process. We don't put any willpower into them, and we can purposefully create healthy, important habits that will help us achieve any goal that we want to. Is that pretty much?
Since the age of 5, we've been accumulating these programs, these metaprograms, these subconscious patterns of doing and being. And, depression is a habit. I would say happiness is a habit, being successful is a habit. So, but all these larger themes are constructed with these daily acts, and we accumulate these along the way. And sometimes we have to review our habits that we've accumulated over our lifetime and say, hey, which ones are good, which are empowering, which are disempowering, which ones are going to get me to my goals, which ones are not. And we got to sort of clean house. And you can't really delete habits. You got to replace them.
Excellent. It's really interesting what you say, because sometimes we define ourselves by our habits. Or say, well, I'm a lazy person, or I'm a sad person, or I'm just not a fit person. Well, these are habits, metaprograms, things that are running in your subconscious that you've created. And they don't define you, but they just are something that you have to overwrite and replace with something else.
Yeah, guys, I think iOS 16 at the time of this podcast is going to be coming out, and apparently some really cool stuff with Apple. But that being said, essentially, people have iOS 1 running, and they're trying to achieve a iOS 16 lifestyle, grand goal. So you got to update your OS operating system. The hardware is what you have, and even we'll talk about the hardware, maybe another podcast. But the software, that's your habits and your routines, and we got to upgrade these sometimes. And if you don't, then you're gonna have bugs, you're gonna have glitches, and you're gonna have problems. And we see that with people having obesity, we see that people depressed, we see that people with low energy, we see that with all the other unwanted consequences of people's lives right now.
Excellent. Well, that's a great summary, and it just goes to show the power of creating a good habit. So let me ask you this. How long does it take to form a habit? How many days? What does it look like?
So, a lot of people say, hey, man, it takes 7 days. Hey, 21 days. Hey, 30 days. But the City College of London has done, numerous studies, probably between 60 to 120 days. So around 67 days is what sort of the average people are saying for a habit. And obviously, when you're installing these habits, your environment makes a difference. So when you're in a highly energized, really empowered, immersive state, and you're doing something with emotion and intensity, and your why is known, probably this is a shorter time frame of installation. But otherwise, between 2 to 3 months. And the problem with most of us is we give up after a week, 2 weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, and we're like, oh man, it doesn't work. So think about a habit as like an app on your phone. You're downloading it. It takes some time to download. And if you're trying to download multiple programs at once, it's really slow. But if you just choose one program you want to download, you download it. Now it's on your phone. Now it's very easy to access, and it's seamless, and it's easy to use. But during the downloading process, it takes time. And so we don't sometimes give ourselves time to fully download a program into our nervous system, into our DNA, into our subconscious. Because once it's there, then it's you don't have to think about it. It's done.
Yes, that's very powerful. I mean, what we're talking about is basically changing our wiring, right? This is about neuroplasticity. We all have the ability to actually change how we're wired, and it takes time to do that. We're installing a new program, and you can really. This is not a task that's going to take years or a tremendous amount of willpower. It's really limited to, like 21, 67 days. I've heard that 21 days to kind of get kind of get the process started. But really, as you mentioned, around 67 days to have it fully ingrained. So, the average could take more or less time. But that's such a powerful concept because it puts a time limit on it. So you're not just thinking you're going to struggle for the rest of your life, these types of things.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Great summary.
Excellent. So, okay, let's get down to the nitty gritty here. The question is, okay, now we know the power of habits. We know the importance of habits. How do you start creating habit? How does someone who's like, in a situation where they're not doing the things they know they need to do, how do they get started?
I would say just break your habits into like some of the foundational keystone habits, and then sort of everything else. Then it's also, it's clarity, right? Clarity creates power. Clarity creates progress. Clarity creates happiness, right? So it's like being crystal clear on exactly what we want to create in our life, and what does our body want to look like? What is our goals? What's our financial status? What's our friend status? All that huge goals, you just reverse engineer to say, okay, to hit these goals, I need to hit these outcomes, and then hit these outcomes, which habits are going to serve me? And of all the habits out there, let's say there's 100 habits I need to install. What's the one habit that will make everything easy or unnecessary for everything else? So like, so your Pareto principle, the whole thing, extreme Pareto principle. For those of you who don't know, Pareto is essentially an Italian economist that felt that, he found this universal law. 20% of the things he did got 80% of the results, or 20% of the observations he made yielded 80% of the trends he was seeing. So in that sense, if you can 80-20 your life, or even 199 your life, figure out that keystone habit that if you just install this one thing, man, everything else would be easy, unnecessary. So usually it's health related. I think a foundational habit is health. And so of all the health habits, is it sleeping? Is it walking? Is it eating right? Figure out that one habit. And then once you do that, then you create momentum. Then you're like, all right, what's the second habit that I want to add on top of that? And you layer these habits and create this indestructible, powerful foundation. You forge, and you start to forge a different you, but you're doing it one habit at a time.
That's excellent. That's very powerful. You're basically creating a new identity for yourself. And that's, I'll just go on a whole tangent here, but that's a super important concept, because if you think about a smoker, for example, it's maybe difficult for them to give up that cigarette. They're, thinking about it, they see it and they want to smoke. But if you define yourself as a non-smoker, you just have no desire at all. You look at the cigarette and like, just get that away from me. That's not part of your identity. It's not who you are. And what you're talking about is forming a new identity. So
constructing a new identity. And one of those powerful laws of in human consciousness is to be, in alignment with your identity, and you always are like, if you are X kind of person, then you'll always do things subconsciously or consciously to be in line with that thing. And so, might as well, if we're the authors of our own lives and everything is fiction, whether it's disempowering or empowering fiction, might as well create the fiction that you want. This version of me I've created was because like I was like, all right, I took pieces of this person, and some of all the things I want to do. And I'm like, all right, that's who I want to become. All right, how do I do that? Okay, let's do all these things. And then I've created that. I envisioned this person and I became that person. So we're all like essentially stories or creations of where we want to go. But some of us have a pen in our hand. Others are like, let life sort of push us around, and we sort of are reactionary and we just end up being this other person. And that may not be the person you want to be. So I say, take back control, take back the pen and write the story of your life. You're the hero of your own film. So how is the second half of the movie going to turn out? And what Ravi's talking about with these habits are fundamental.
So, okay. So let's break it down a bit more. So now you got the clarity, you've got a goal in mind, you know what you want to achieve, you're breaking it down to pieces. Let's just make it simple. Let's say your goal, to achieve this goal, you need to start exercising. Okay. So walk us through how you create a habit around that. Like how do you change around that?
First, you got to figure out your why, like make sure that's really powerful. 2, you got to figure out, okay, I want to exercise. What does that mean? Does that mean I go to fencing 3 times a week? I go to Pilates. I go underwater, weight training. Like, what am I doing specifically? And then make sure that the goal is in alignment with your why. And then you create, outcomes. You can create plans. And then if you want to, and you can do this. And then what happens is, after about a week or 2, you get sensory cue, you get feedback. You get to say, hey, am I getting closer to my goal? Am I not? So there's some kind of metrics you're measuring. And what Peter Drucker says, what gets measured, gets improved upon. So you want to really have key metrics. If you want to fast track this even more, then you have a mentor, coach, or guidance person. You want to fast track this even more, then you have a community you're involved in, right? And then if you want to make it even more powerful, then you have an immersive experience to sort of jumpstart this whole thing. So immersive experience, community, coach, guide, or mentor, and then you're role modeling people who've already done the same. If the habits are going to achieve some kind of outcome, then you're role modeling someone who's already achieved that same outcome. So all these things married together in a synergistic way, it's impossible to fail and impossible not to hit your goals.
Let's step back again. Figure out your why. So you have a why. Say, in order to, you want to exercise in order to create this body that you've always wanted. Now, you have to tie an emotional reason behind that why. I think that's extremely important. You mentioned this earlier, because a stronger emotion will actually make the habit more fast, or you will achieve the habit in a faster way than you will if you don't have a strong emotion. So very strong emotion to the why. You could even put pictures of yourself when you had that physique, or of someone else, of a role model of yours, put it up and really get that emotional strength. So, okay, so you've got the strong why. Now you've got to start making the process a little easier to actually complete that goal. So what's the next step here? You have your why, then what?
I mean, you can just say, look, you break it down to milestones. So here's like, there's 10 milestones. There's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, up to all the way to phase 10. So there's a bunch of different phases. And then there's all, these are make it, bite size, milestones, achieve the milestones. You're making progress, consistency, and then, but we talked about also being in the right environment. Like if around everyone who else around you is fat, overweight, eat unhealthy food, who don't exercise, then it's very difficult. So you're changing environment. That's why, community, environment, tribe. And then you're role modeling someone you admire who's already done what you're doing. You're seeing what they do. So that's helping you as well. And then what if someone like every day is checking on you? So that's accountability, right? The accountability is there. So there's essentially peer accountability, personal self accountability, and professional accountability. these three things will help ensure that this habit gets installed, implemented, and executed upon.
Wonderful. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about a book called Atomic Habits. We both read this book. In fact, you introduced me to this book, Vic, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Phenomenal book. Talks about how to build habits. So if you are all interested in getting some more detail about creating habits, definitely check this book out. What we talked about are fundamentals of forming a habit: cue, craving, response, and reward. He calls it the habit cycle. A cue leads to craving, leads to response, leads to a reward. And Vic mentioned this. So the cue, for example, let's just talk about a bad habit, like eating, let's say eating donuts, right? The cue, maybe you walk by a Dunkin' Donuts and you see it. Then you have a craving to actually go there and eat the donut. Your response is you walk into the store, you buy the donut. The reward is you eat it and it makes you feel good. You walk out of the Dunkin' Donuts, then you see it again and you're like, oh, let me go back in. So this is a cycle. It continues to happen. So in order to create a positive habit, you want to understand this habit loop and create a cue, a craving, a response, and reward that's positive. So the cue could be, for exercise, for example, the cue could be your workout shoes, your sleep in your workout clothes, or you have a pull-up bar right in your front, like next to your or out of your bedroom door. Make it obvious, and then you can make the craving attractive, right? You say, okay, look, I'm going to do 10 pull-ups. When I do my 10 pull-ups, I will have my coffee in the morning. It's called habit stacking. So another way to kind of get beyond that or get through that potential energy, make it kinetic energy. Make the response easy, like have the pull-up bar close to you so you can do it easily, and then make the reward satisfying, right? So the reward is your coffee, and that's satisfying. So that's like, these are just other simple tools and tips to actually get you to move. And really it's about moving for a limited amount of time, because once you do that and your why is strong enough, you will want to do this. You will see results. You will measure them. As Vic mentioned, you really have to, create these metrics and measure them. And then if you immerse yourself in this environment where your friends are doing it, you have coaches helping you, you have people maintaining your accountability, you will create this habit. You will succeed at it. It's going to be a lot easier than you think. And then you just go on to the next one, and then you can create your life and make it very easy and make it such that everything runs smoothly and subconsciously without the willpower and effort. And I think that's what you've done, Vic. That's exactly what you've done in your life.
Thanks, man.
Absolutely. So now can you share with us, just to kind of close up, maybe 2 or 3 habits that you've created using this process that you find super helpful and empowering other people can do as well?
I think the number one habit people need to cultivate is energy production. So it's essentially, you have to have this energy, and you can't expect energy to be given to you. And I think energy is the newest currency. Like, money is great, happiness is great, relationships are great, life experiences are great, but everything is created through energy. And so energy, like that physical, like vibrant, like vitality in the morning, if you can have that, that will sustain you throughout the day. It'll give you the horsepower you need to achieve your goals. And you bring a zest and optimism to life, because most people are not, I think we've talked about this, Ravi, offline, like most people are not that way. And so it's refreshing to people if you can bring that. And this type of mindset can help you withstand any kind of challenges you may have, obstacles, and eventually be resourceful enough to overcome them and come to the other side with solutions. So what I do first thing in the morning is I get up at 4:45. It's sort of like a commitment I've made to myself, and I feel like I want to beat up the sun. I want to get up before the sun gets up. I want to get ready in this sort of quiet time where the world is sleeping and I'm awake, and I'm going to create a magnificent day. And so I'm journaling perhaps in the morning. I have a gratitude journal I do. Then I get ready, go downstairs. I have my green juice. I have something called athletic greens I take in the morning. It has like pretty much 75 nutrients, supplements, minerals, vitamins, everything you can think of in there. I then, do something called magic time, where I'm working on my number one task I need to do for that day. That's what we call non-urgent but important. So this is essentially like something that's going to move the needle in my life that I don't have to do, but if I did it, it would really enhance my life. And I give it 30 minutes, and then I move on to my workouts. And so right now I'm climbing. I'm prepping to climb Kilimanjaro, so I'm doing more cardio. But usually I do a lot of weights, and then I do some flexibility training, and then sometimes I do martial arts. So choosing whatever is interesting to you, choose that and get that in there. And usually say, oh, I'll wait till afternoon or evening to work out. But a lot of times, when that comes around, it doesn't happen. So by locking it in first thing in the morning, you're guaranteeing your first win, And then after that, it's like, eating either, if I'm intermittent fasting, perhaps waiting till 11 o'clock to eat. If I am eating that day, then eating a really nutritious breakfast, whether it's a smoothie, whether it's a green juice, whether it's, some eggs, and some things like that. And then it's starting and launching my day. On top of that, another habit I do is, it's called oppositional thinking. And I learned this from Robin Sharma. Whenever I have a negative thought or a negative thing that comes across my brain, I try to challenge that thought and potentially even think the opposite of that. Oh man, that person is going to say no to my proposal, or you know what, it's not going to work out. And I immediately why is it not going to work out? Perhaps it is going to work out. Maybe I just need to work harder. Maybe I need to do something different. And so I consistently challenge all my negative thoughts. And another habit that I've done in the past that really has been helpful is what I call the no complaint challenge. And I offer to all the listeners of the Peak Health Show. So you wear a rubber band or a bracelet on your left hand, and every time you complain, criticize, or sarcasm, you sort of snap the bracelet, give yourself some pain, right? And then switch the bracelet. And the goal is to go 21 days without complaining, criticizing, sarcasm. And it took me 8 months to do that. The first time I tried to do it. The second time I did it, it took me 6 months. So it's a worthy pursuit. It's a worthy thought experiment and a challenge. But these are the kind of things sometimes I do in my life to consistently up-level myself, hold myself accountable, push the standards of where I live in. And another thing Ravi and I both share is we try to keep raising our standards. So along with habit formation is raising your standards, because this really essentially you're creating an environment of winningness, of positivity, of optimism, of strength, of constant up leveling, and not in a frenetic way where you're going to make yourself sick or stressed, but it's what else can I do? Where is the one of my famous favorite quotes is push to your limits and then your limits will expand. So essentially, we keep pushing to these limits and we see how far can we go? So environment, standards, peer group, habits, and then choosing these fundamental, keystone strategies that we talked about. One was creating energy, and the other one is these kind of thought challenges where you're eliminating the weeds in your brain.
Wow, that was wonderful. I appreciate that summary. Very helpful. And the 21-day no complaint challenge sounds great. I mean, you reset every time if you complain or whatever.
Yeah,
you reset, and that's why it takes that much time potentially.
Because you don't realize how the negative default setting. Our brain is a reptilian brain. It's meant to keep us survival, and we're always thinking about what's the worst thing that can happen. What's wrong with our life? What is the danger? And it's to reprogram that consciously takes some time.
Yes, wonderful. Well, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Vic. It's awesome to have you on. We'll absolutely have you on again for another episode.
All right, Ravi, keep on crushing it, brother.
You too. Thanks, my friend.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast. And if you did, please make sure to hit the subscribe and the like button and leave a comment about what you'd like to see on our future episodes. Just a reminder that this podcast is for educational purposes only. It does not substitute for professional care, nor does it constitute medical or other professional advice or services. If you're looking for medical care, please seek a qualified doctor or medical professional. For more information, or if you'd like to check out our programs, please visit our website, peakwellnesshealth.com. That's peakwellnesshealth.com.